Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of this podcast where we dive into the important details of punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, whatever it is, as long as it's from small, sweaty rooms and has that flavor that we all enjoy. You know what I'm talking about. The things that bubble up from like the underground, like basement shows, and out here in the West Coast, VFW hall shows, those also take place on the West or the East Coast. So you get what I'm saying. Today is, of course, no exception to that rule because I don't want to break my own rules. Today is a great chat with Ryan Hughes, the vocalist and lead guitarist from Bleed from Houston, Texas. If you like anything sort of 90s rock, you will adore what Bleed has going on. They're part of the Narrowhead universe, like I've just made up that universe, but Ryan played in that band initially, and then Bleed started a couple of years ago, and I know it got algorithmically delivered to me as a fan of most 90s bands, especially the, grunge era, bleeding into the mid-90s to the late 90s where, nu metal started to take over. And let's be clear, there's a lot of nu metal going on with what Bleed has to offer, but all of this to say Ryan was a great discussion, and they are promoting their very first self-titled LP coming out on $20 spin. It is literally hitting the shelves, the proverbial digital shelves, the physical shelves on this Friday, May 2nd. I've heard this record. It is top tier stuff. I enjoy it greatly. I think all of the band's recorded output is just chef's kiss. So I was happy to have Ryan on the show, and we get into all of it. Texas, nu metal, all the bands that he likes, and all the influences that he brings to the table. And it was a great discussion. So you, right there in the back of the room, this may be your first time here. Welcome. Plenty of seats. Come join us, whether you're listening for the past 10 years or whether you started listening to this show. Literally, this is the first episode. I don't care. Welcome. It's great. You can always reach out to the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I love to receive feedback, pitches, whatever the case may be. I'm just, I want to be in communication because this medium of podcasting can get a little lonely sometimes when I'm just sitting here in my home office talking to a microphone. And it's nice to know that you out there are listening, and I appreciate that. I mean, I see the numbers roll in, but that doesn't sometimes, humanize the connection. So that is one way you can reach out. The second way that you can support this show for absolutely free, $0, you are just contributing your time, which of course is important, but this will take you 30 seconds. Just dip out of your respective podcast player, or maybe you're using Spotify. If you're using Spotify, just toss a ranking in there, like a star rating, not ranking, you know what I'm saying, star rating. Just click 5 stars, boom, you're off and running. Or if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you can leave a rating and or a review. Both of those things are extremely helpful. All of it captures the appropriate data for this show to get recommended to the right people and all that sort of stuff. And I know you probably hear every podcast say that, but there's a reason they do. And I'm not special. I'm just like everybody else, right? You get it. Anyways, all of that stuff helps the show tremendously. Also, check out the sponsors that I have for these episodes because they're special to me. I hand pick them. I literally reach out to them to be like, hey, I want to partner with you. I want to do something cool. And that's a reason for you to, just stick around during the ads and listen to what they have going on, because I love that I get to share the things that I am passionate about to you. And then it just works. It's one big circle. We all recommend stuff to each other. And speaking of recommendations, how about weekly recommendations? There's a link in the show notes where you can listen to all of these weekly recommendations, because I do this every episode. Just tossing stuff your general direction to be like, hey, this is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that I just recently discovered. You need to listen to it. And today, I'm sorry, this is such a self-plug, but I am going to do it because it just came out recently. My new band called Blood Guilt. We released our first EP, 5 songs on New Age Records. I'm really proud of it, because if you like 90s hardcore, whether it's Unbroken, Strife, Judge, any of that stuff, you probably will find some value in this. And I yell across it, and I'm pretty proud of what we were able to accomplish. We played some shows in March. It was great. And I am looking forward to doing more with this band, provided that we are able to do more and get asked to play shows. We're all spread across the country, so it's a little difficult. The local gigs aren't just like super easy to put together, but with some planning, we're able to pull this off. Anyways, I apologize for the self-congratulatory pat on the back or whatever, but I'd be remiss if I didn't plug the things that I am also involved in outside of this podcast. So check that out. That is on the playlist that I've been accumulating and putting together. So hopefully you listen to that, or even if you don't listen to that, you just listen to something else on that playlist, and then you get keyed into new music. That is why we're all here. So let's dive into the conversation with Ryan Hughes from Bleed. I love this band, and I think that you will enjoy them as well. If you have not heard of them, if you have heard of them, you will be excited to hear Ryan talk about his journey, because it's been an interesting one. So here is Ryan right now. Like many people discover music on the internet these days, it gets algorithmically delivered to you, whether you wanted to listen to it or not. And I remember when you first put out the EP, the original EP came out, 2021, maybe?
21. Yep. Okay. September.
Yeah. And so it recognized you obviously like, Hum and any affiliated band that sounds like Hum. So we're going to go ahead and give this to you on a silver platter. And I listened to it, but obviously there's, enough differentiation to not just be like, oh yes, like clearly there's, only one note you're hitting. Something I found that was, or what made me gravitate towards you and the band in general is you were clearly unapologetic about the fact that you're like, listen, like we obviously like new metal, like we clearly want this to be a part of our sound as well, but not just like the surface level stuff. Like yes, we like Korn or Limp Bizkit or whatever, but you're like, I want to go 7 layers deep. Like I want to talk about Nothing Face. I want to talk about whatever Taproot or whatever. So the question there is, I know coming from like the punk and hardcore scene, that is not a cool style of music. And obviously it's been more, I guess appropriated, for lack of a better term now, where people are like, no, it's cool. I mess with that. Did you, as you were kind of like thinking about hatching this project, was there any, I wouldn't call it shame, but is there any just like, well, I don't know, people are going to give me crap because I sound like these bands that obviously some people may not call cool in any stretch of the imagination.
It's interesting. The new metal thing, there's such a resurgence lately, and it's become pretty trendy from what I've seen. So, when the band started, there wasn't necessarily this let's make a new metal band type thing. I think that we just naturally gravitate to the extremes of certain things, such as genres or anything like that. So when we started the band, it was more like, to be frank, just do what Jacob and I were doing in Arrowhead when I was in that band. But but I wanted to do it heavier, a little bit faster, and a little bit darker. And I think naturally that kind of comes out as, some people hear it, they hear nu metal. We, because I've mentioned before, like Nothing Face, Ultra Spank, stuff like that, Dry Kill Logic, those bands, when you think of those bands, I don't necessarily put them in the same bracket as us. But to someone else, they definitely might, just because it is more extreme than what people kind of tag us as, like the shoegaze thing, the new gaze thing, which is another thing that kind of blows my mind, where people kind of conjure that up from. But I digress. So with the nu metal thing, there was never really an intention to write nu metal riffs. We just wanted to write riffs that were heavy with melodies and things that can carry them into the next part, to where you aren't just listening to some ignorant nu metal things just so they can tag it like that. It was never really the intention. But bands like Nothing Face, Dry Kill Logic, Korn, Ultra Spank, those bands definitely play a role, because they have melodies too, and they're really freaking heavy. So I guess it's more of a mindset, I guess, with the writing process than it is we're actually going to lift, what they were doing. It's more of like, okay, I like what they do with their riffs and their melodies, so I want to try to incorporate that into this song that I'm writing for Bleed. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and especially too, where it's like when you're coming at it through the lens of what you're talking about, like every kid goes through their phases of music that they like either only listen to, and then everything else that they listened to before, it's like, oh no, I used to listen to pop punk, but I don't listen to that anymore. I'm listening to heavy stuff or whatever. But it sounds like you, and I think rightfully so, like many people, when they grow up with their music tastes, like they don't necessarily throw everything out. They're just like, oh, it's additive, So it's like, yeah, you're not going to lift a Dry Kill Logic riff, which the fact that we're talking about a band like Dry Kill Logic in the year of our Lord 2025 is a very funny concept. But just that idea that like you are adding to this, but through the lens of all of the music that you have been consuming through your whole life, which is obviously hardcore punk and everything else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That, to me, that hits the nail on the head. The agenda has always been take things that we love from all these bands that people love to, say they sound like this and that. Take what we love from them and trim the fat that we didn't necessarily love,
Right.
And there's tons of fat with a lot of those bands, and that's just the nature of those bands basically, birthing a new sound. And, there's going to be growing pains when they try to figure it out. It's nothing against bands that have fat, you know what I mean? But we just like certain parts, and we just don't like other parts that come along with them. So we just the method's been to take what we love and form it into our own and go from there.
Right. And and truthfully, that's usually where interesting sounds can kind of come from, because you can definitely throw out the things that you are not a fan of, but you're just like, what this band does here is something I want to like double down on, as opposed to being like, all right, I guess like we sound like Spine Shank now. Like, I didn't mean that, it's like, it just happens
right,
sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the way that we approach the writing process, the recording process, live shows, the way that we approach all that is kind of what makes it to where it's like, okay, if you are a Spine Shank fan, you might pick that up, but someone else who's from a pop punk or alternative rock background might not pick it up that way. And because the way that we do what we do is kind of our own thing, and we kind of swear by some processes, and then other processes we just kind of pick up along the way. But we don't necessarily try to do anything exactly like anyone else, because what fun is that, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, and that, I mean, you see that when you talk about every music scene that, starts to become commercialized. And I don't mean that in a negative way, where it's like, whatever, we'll use new metal as an example, where it's like, in the early 2000s, that's where you started to see the third, fourth, and like fifth waves happening of just like, oh, I see that they were influenced by the first Korn record now, but now they're doing this thing. And like, yeah, are there parts that are cool? Yeah. But like, do I like the band? Not really. But like it
Yeah.
starts to, until it runs its logical conclusion. And then that's when, a project like what you are doing can be interesting, because you're just like, oh yeah, we're literally picking what we define as the best parts. And like, we're not adhering to any of the trappings of like, all right, we're a sixth wave band of this,
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And like the new metal thing is fine. Like people, if they want to call it new metal or new metal leaning, that's totally cool. You know, I mean, the whole idea is to just invoke feelings upon people, and whatever people take from it is totally cool by me. Um, and I think our music is digestible enough to kind of leach into different avenues, such as new metal, alternative rock, alternative metal. I saw a groove metal tag the other day. That's kind of cool. I'll take that all day
Yeah.
long. That's super cool. So the way that anyone ingests it is totally fine by us.
Right. Yeah. That's obviously that's not your decision at that point. Like you've already put the music out there. Now it's just like, well, whatever you want to call us, like we're here.
Yes, yes, and I'll never, think twice about someone digesting the music, period, because that means that they listen to it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's a special thing. Putting the focus on you as a human being. Were you actually born and raised in Houston, or where'd you come up?
So I'm from Dallas.
Okay.
The band's based in Dallas. I was born in Dallas in a town called Plano. Um, it's like 20 minutes north of Dallas proper. I grew up in Plano my whole life. Lived kind of around that area within 60 square miles probably. And I'm still here today. I'm like 20 minutes up the road from Plano now.
Okay. Why do I'm familiar with the name of the town, but I feel like there's another sort of either historical, there's some connection that why would I know Plano?
Yeah, there's a couple connotations that come with Plano. A lot of parts of Plano are pretty affluent.
Okay.
Um, there's three high schools, and I was very, very far from affluent growing up, but I went to the most affluent high school growing up. So I got to witness a lot of things that were from a different fold of life than I was from. And also, I think in the early 2000s there was this big. It's pretty crazy because thinking about what I just said about Plano, in the early 2000s there was a big heroin epidemic at one of the senior highs, and that was a big black mark, I think, for a long time on the city of Plano.
Got it.
Um, yeah, it's I mean, kids in high school were dying like weekly. It was not good. So, for our generations, that's kind of what people think of, more so the affluent thing.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, Plano's pretty much as suburbia can get.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Which is cool, I mean, that's where I came from. It's honestly where I feel comfortable. I've lived in Dallas proper. I've lived in Plano too, and like, I have kids too, so living in a suburban area it's so much easier. There's parks that we can go to that are in every freaking neighborhood. You don't have to fight tooth and nail to go to the grocery store or stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as you were growing up and starting to, be a kid, develop an identity and all that sort of stuff, two questions on that. Like, what was your family structure like as you were growing up? And, were you like an indoor kid? Like, what was your interests lying towards?
Yeah, interesting questions. The family structure, my family was pretty small. I grew up with my mom living with her, and I had a younger sister. My dad was around, um, and he was the one that kind of introduced me to heavy music. Like you talk about new metal, he put on Piston in the car at like when I was like 6 years old. So
Okay.
I mean, they're a pretty distinguishable band. So that kind of stuck with me for a long time, really until now. So he kind of introduced me to all that stuff. But he was a real private guy, especially the older I got. We had a good relationship, but I wouldn't necessarily say that, we were best friends, unfortunately. I mean, I wish we were. But yeah, the family structure was pretty tiny. My mom was a school teacher, so me not being good at school, we butted heads a lot, which caused for some issues growing up. But as far as me being a kid and stuff like that, I struggled with my identity for a long, long time. I really wanted to be one of these kids that like played football, had all these friends. And I tried, for years and years. I would play football, play all these sports, but it never really stuck. And another thing about Plano, if you aren't like top of the lineup, first string on the A team, then you aren't really going to play. You'll go to practice 365 days a year, but as
Right.
far as football goes, you aren't gonna see the field. So I stuck around for a long time, really like until early high school, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not I'm not loving devoting my entire year to football or sports and really getting nothing out of it. And I like playing music way better. I like hanging with my friends that are degenerates and that, listen to much cooler music than those guys who I'm hanging out with on the football field do.
Right.
So yeah, early high school was like a pretty pivotal moment for me because I put like sports and that like really trying to be someone who I wasn't down, and I just kind of leaned into myself. Um, Started playing guitar at like 12, 13, I think. My first guitar was a Jackson Warrior. It was
Oh, okay.
badass. I got it from
Yeah.
a guy down the street. It's like one of my favorite guitars I've ever had. I bought it from him for like $300, and it was like this big X-shaped Jackson with a Floyd Rose. Me at 12, having no idea what to do with a Floyd Rose, couldn't even restring it myself. But so those two paths kind of ran parallel for a long time until kind of early high school when I started leaning into like, okay, I'm going to start going to shows now. I'm going to start writing my own music. I've started my first band at like 14, so I guess if you had to describe early teenage years, it'd be a big identity crisis, which I still kind of struggle with, but I started to really find myself and who I wanted to be and the things I wanted to do kind of early high school, ninth, 10th grade.
Yeah. Those are, I mean, everybody is just trying on a bunch of different costumes and friend groups. Like no one knows what they're doing those years. So it's not, you're especially with what you're talking about, like the area in which you grew up in. It's like, I mean, if you don't play sports and or football in Texas, like you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? It's like, you have to at
Yeah.
least try. It's like Friday Night Lights, baby. Of course. Like, what else are you going to do on Friday night? Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense that it was like, you felt like you were living these two disparate lives where it's just like, I like music, but like, I don't have time for anything except sweating on the football field, 100-degree weather.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it was interesting too, because that whole time I was like trying to be friends with these football players and like these popular kids, quote unquote. I really struggled with like feeling so different from all of them because a lot of these guys they're just built differently than I am, and it's like pretty cliche, because it comes out in the music too, but it's true, and I think that a lot of people that gravitate to our worlds, I'm sure, had this same exact experiences growing up. it made it hard to stick around and be like, why am I wanting to be friends with these people so bad? These people honestly kind of suck.
Right.
They're not someone I like want to hang out with. And it was funny because my mom, God love her, was always like pushing me in that direction, being like, why don't you call so and so and go hang out with them? And I'm like, because I don't want to go hang out with them.
Right.
I would rather be alone than go hang out with people that I feel like I've got to put a different layer of skin on around. It's
Sure.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, to your point too, it's like your mom was just, and most parents fall into this camp of like, they just want what's best for the kid. And so like, they think that it's like, yeah, you being friends with Timmy Quarterback, like this is going to be great for Ryan. And it's like, not really. Timmy kind of sucks. Like you've never really hung out with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So, I mean, the fact like Pissed On is a pretty deep cut. Like no one really either remembers that band. Like, I mean, I truthfully only have like a surface level of knowledge. A dude from Typo Negative was in there, right? No, maybe.
Dude, honestly,
It's okay if you don't
question.
know. I
don't know. They kind of sounded like them a little
right.
bit.
Like maybe that's where I'm, but anyways, so getting exposed to that, which is clearly like, a deep cut, and then starting to, figure out your musical identity. What kind of iterations did you go through? Like, were you, did you hit a rap phase where you're obviously, like, oh, I love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg or whatever. Like what sort of iterations did you go through?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, definitely had a big Eminem phase around that time when I was listening to Pissed On. I had my buddy across the street burn the Eminem show for me, and I hid it from my mom so I could listen to it. Of course, it was the explicit version.
Right.
And then I found Linkin Park pretty early too. Hybrid Theory in particular, and Meteora. I remember going to the store and buying Meteora on CD, and I had, back then they put all their money into the CDs, and they had the one that like folded open, and it was, paperback basically. And it's corny, but those two records truly changed my life when I first heard them. Like all the way from the start of Paper Cut at the beginning of Hybrid Theory to the end of Meteora, every song just resonated exponentially. So they were really big for me growing up. Slipknot was really big for me growing up. Still had a rap phase for sure. I mean, you think about those two bands,
Yep.
But definitely for some reason it was like Linkin Park and Slipknot at that age, at like 13 or 14. And then of course after that I kind of went through, like a lot of kids that find those bands, I went through a really big metalcore era. And I mean, me and my friends, everyone in Bleed is big metalcore fans. We still
don't think I don't recognize that, Ryan. Yes, yeah,
yeah, yeah. There's a couple of parts on the new record where we really leaned into it, which is cool, and like again, just goes back to something that we take what we love and we want to do it,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say honestly the big ones were definitely Linkin Park and Slipknot for some reason, and then the countless metalcore bands that I was into for months, from one band to the next band to the next band.
Of course, whatever's on the MySpace top 8, you're like,
That's right.
Who does Drop Dead Gorgeous like this week?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you'd find them, on the MySpace.
It's one of my greatest pleasures to work with people who are doing cool things. And that is why I love 30-something Records. Not only are they an amazing record label from Berlin, Germany, they've existed since about 2019, and they're coming up on 100 releases. Very prolific in a very short period of time. I got keyed into them with the Fire Theft LP release that they did, I probably want to say 3 or some odd years ago. Fire Theft is Jeremy Enoch from Sunny Day Real Estate's band that he did only one LP, but it was so freaking good. And I love that band. Only got to see them once, but saw what they were doing. And then I took a closer look, and 30-something, they just are doing a lot of great stuff. They're either reissuing LPs that have been long out of print or releasing stuff from new bands, which is exactly what I'm excited to talk about, that is the new band from Rocky Votolato called Suzzallo. And they are releasing their debut LP that's coming out in early March or early May. March. What am I, time traveling? Early May. So you can go on to 30somethingrecords.com and you will be able to pre-order that. They have deluxe editions, regular LPs, CDs. It's great. I love this. It is a absolutely rockin' sort of throwback to what Rocky was doing in Waxwing, but it has a sort of, 90s vibe to it all. It's really, really good. So I wholeheartedly love the Suzzallo release. And then on top of it, you need to pay attention to 30 something records, follow them on social media, check out what they have going on. They are a great, great operation and I love supporting them. So 30 something records, huge shout out and follow what they do.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.
That era of music discovery is not too dissimilar to obviously how people, randomly discover music now, whether it's like I mentioned with the, algorithms shooting stuff at me. It's like when you were able to access a very easy MP3 player on a band's page to be like, so this is what Job for a Cowboy sounds like. And then you're like, oh my God, Suicide Silence. Like, how many bands are there? And then all of a sudden you're just like, I listen to all of these bands. Like I am deathcore. Yeah.
Yeah. Wormhole for sure. And like you want to get more extreme and then you like find From the Fallen Dreams and you're like, oh man, now they do melodies. And then you find Misery Signals through them. And then you kind of go backwards and you're like, oh my gosh, look at these bands, I mean, these guys were doing incredible things. And so the wormhole of metalcore is incredible because there's so many avenues that you can go down and they're all pretty spectacular.
Agree wholeheartedly. Yeah. And so as you were taking that kind of fork in the road where, like you said, you were, started to hang out with people who played music and started to, go to shows, what pushed you to like actually go to shows from that sort of, because that's when you start to experience the independent music scene and you clearly are, noticing the difference between like a concert you went to versus a VFW show hall or what have you. What attracted you to, I guess, that independent side of things and like starting to attend local shows and stuff?
So I remember stumbling across a band they were called Scarlet Affair for some reason. I stumbled across them on MySpace, on a top friend somewhere, and I listened to it and it was good. Like it was more like post-hardcore, screamo-ish, I guess, with melodies. And I found them probably like 14. And I saw that they were from Plano, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Right.
This band is from where I'm from, and like I couldn't believe it. And so, sure enough, they had some flyer on their MySpace. It was like, "Hey, we're playing at." They called it the Door in Plano back then. It said that they were playing here on this date, and I was like, "Mom, I've got to go to this. Can you please drive me?" And so me and like my buddies that had started my first band with all piled up into the Tahoe, and like went down the street to this show. And I was like, okay, this feels good.
This is it.
It's like there's a ton of anxiety going through you when you're like going to this local show at a young age where you're like, am I going to look cool enough? Are people going to be nice? Are they going to be mean? They're probably going to have tattoos. You're like thinking all these things. And then I get there and I'm like, this is way cooler than I could ever even imagine.
Right. It's like this, you truly do, especially like you said, from the local perspective, like it's either a band coming through on tour that you see, the first of four play and you're just like, oh, they're kids from this local high school that I go to or whatever. It's like that makes it so real to you where it feels attainable at that point.
Yes, 100%. And like I could probably count on both my hands the amount of like true concerts I went to up until that point. but after I kind of uh, scratched the surface there, then I was like, okay, now I need to start really going to shows because love this. You know, I love the feeling of being here. I love the energies and seeing people that I could probably really relate to and things like that. And then it was kind of downhill from there.
Mm-hmm. So as you started, I mean, like you said, you were already playing in a band that you went to the show with. Uh, when did, I guess the concept, I presume you were probably just doing like, you know, terrible covers or like maybe trying to write some of your original songs. What tickled your brain about the fact that you could like actually compose, you know, put three riffs together to like actually make a song? Like what was inspiring for you to do that?
Um, you know, yeah, we were doing covers and stuff. Like we were doing like Linkin Park covers.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
remember doing, yeah, it was awesome. I remember doing an It Dies Today cover at like 13 or 14.
That's sick.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, it was awesome. I didn't really grasp songwriting then. I remember trying to like I remember wanting to write lyrics, and I would write lyrics about like what everything that I was feeling like in that moment. And looking back on some of them, I can imagine that they were, you know, pretty scatterbrained. But I remember the idea of writing lyrics, and I was like, okay, this feels like expression because I'm not very good with words and like talking to someone. I have a really hard time expressing exactly how I feel. But for some reason, writing words to a riff back then just felt secure and it felt good to the point where I was like, okay, this is how I feel like I can express myself the best. And then I would like hear these, you know, it sounds cliche, but I would like hear riffs in my head and then I would like bring them to band practice because I wasn't good at guitar enough to like write the riff. And I would bring them to band practice and I would show the guy who played guitar, like hum this riff. And I'd be like, hey man, can you try to like write a riff like this?
Yeah.
Of course, that went nowhere at 14, but I really leaned into the transition from playing the Linkin Park covers to like, okay, I want to write riffs like this. I want to sound like this. So then as I got older, I started really grasping the idea of writing a riff and then, you know, formulating words and melodies around it. And then I hit the metalcore phase. So then it was like, okay, I'm not worried about the screams. I'm just going to write the riffs. And then I just started writing metalcore riffs pretty much until the end of high school. So I'd say playing covers is like really important when you're young, you know, because it teaches you song structure. It teaches you um, ways to transition. You know, it teaches you about um, basically coding the music with these melodies to where they fit. And, you know, you just kind of got to ride the bike with no training wheels after that.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting what you were talking about, the idea of being able to express yourself in relation to music, like, because usually the, you know, lyric part, like, yes, there's always that, you know, kid fascination, like once you start to write something and then you can actually match it to a song, you're like, oh, this fits, whatever that may mean. But I find it interesting that that was how you felt like you could back into the music a little bit easier, probably to your point of just the fact that you couldn't really express yourself with guitar because you're like, I only know a little bit of it. But that's cool that the lyric side of things was inspiring to push you further into, you know, actually being able to play music to the lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because before I could play guitar relatively well, I leaned into the lyrics because it's kind of all I had control over. But now, with Bleed specifically, I feel more expression through the riffs than I even do the vocals. To me, I kind of treat the vocals as another instrument now. But to me, the riffs have more expression in them for me personally than a lot of the vocals. Of course, the lyrics on the new record are extremely personal and like pretty deep for me. But I feel just as much expression from the riffs. For some reason, it's like the first time you ever hear riffs that truly leave an impression on you, or, play a guitar chord for the first time through an amp. It's like this feeling that you're going to now be chasing forever. And I've found that a lot through writing riffs for the band, because like I said, I just feel more expression through that part than really anything.
That's cool. That's cool. When you started to, I guess, have, as you were going through high school and playing in bands and stuff like that, like clearly that was not a, future path for yourself from a profession perspective. Or at least most people think that,
Yes.
I'm going to be in a band. I mean, like, yes, I'm going to be in a band the rest of my life, but like, I'm not going to, make money off this, and that's fine. What were you, I guess, doing from, like a future building perspective? Did you have the idea of like what you wanted to do for, work and the rest of your life? Or was it just basically like, one foot in front of the other, we'll see where it brings me?
Yeah, it was like that for a long time. And then my last year and a half, um, in high school, I really hit a kind of a dark part of my adolescence. It's like this quarter life crisis type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going to college at the University of Arkansas. And I tried like the fraternity thing, because I was like so disillusioned with my entire life. I tried that for like 2 months, drank myself like into the ground,
Wow.
didn't go to
Yeah.
class.
Right.
Yes. I mean, the wheels came off for sure. And so yet again, halfway through that year, I found myself at this point where I'm like, okay, I hate what I've become. I hate everyone around me. This is not the path that I want to take. And I remember having like a moment where like I was in Arkansas and I was like, you know what? I need to stop running from who I am and what I want to do. And I think I need to go back to Dallas and start a band, because that's just kind of that's what I'm made to do. And like I ran from it for like that past year and a half, trying to be someone that I was not again. And so I went back to Dallas and I started another band. And at that point, I was just working like jobs, you know what I
Sure.
mean? Jobs that I would find like on Craigslist and stuff like that, $15 an hour for, 25 hours a week or something like that. Definitely not thinking about my future,
Right.
just really living in the moment for sure for a couple years. And then as kind of that came on, um, playing in bands, doing that thing, I was like, I would love to do this forever, but I'm feeling in this moment of my life, I was like 20. It's like, this has possibly a time limit, but I wasn't really sure when it was. But those things kind of come into my life later on. We can get into that.
Sure. Sure. Well, yeah. And I think that's really the way you articulated it, of like running away from who you are. Like, I think everybody experiences some version of that. And whether or not it takes you 2 months like it took you, or whether it takes years for people to kind of walk through that door, it is that the fear of the unknown that walks on the other side, where it's like, I think I know what I'm supposed to do, but like, it's scary to admit that to myself, because, sometimes it's like you feel like a failure, or it's just like, I can't I can't be a part of like what people are doing at college or whatever. Like, everybody talks about,
Yeah.
Greek life or whatever. I was like, this isn't me. And, is it me, or like, am I broken? And it's like, well, no, it's just not you.
Yeah, dude, I still struggle with that daily, because um, I think I think people like us really struggle with wanting to be seen, but also really not wanting to be seen, in a sense of like, this is what I love to do and this is who I love to be. But I struggle with the fear of someone experiencing that and discounting me based on preconceived notions. You know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
And it's something that I struggle with daily. Um, I kind of have to walk up and down the mountain of like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do, and I should keep doing it. But I also struggle with the fear of being perceived as something that I have control over and that I'm not really, because like people are like, oh, you just want to do music at, 32, like, put the guitar down type
Sure.
thing,
Grow up.
and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yes. And like I have a whole career too. So like outside of music, so I struggle with the dichotomy in maintaining integrity in both ends.
Yeah. Oh, and I think, I mean, I like that we're on this topic because I think it's, especially now, the way that music exists, like punk, hardcore, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, it exists at this weird juncture where it's as popular as it ever has been for, all of our lives. Like I'm sure every day it's just like, what? Like that band's playing this, and not because that they're bad, but you're just like, I can't believe that, like, this thing has broken through the ceiling or whatever. Anyways, but like, because of that, there are bands that can exist like Bleed that like, yes, you tour and you play shows, but not to the extent where it's like, you got to get out there, Ryan, for 250 days out of the year. Otherwise your band is never going to be recognized. And so like, because there's this push pull of the fact that like, yeah, you want to take it seriously, but like, we can't take it too seriously because like, we're adults and we have lives as well. And so it's like, you feel your foot in and out in both respects, but you have the ability to exist in both respects, which is an interesting way to kind of think about it.
Yeah, I do. So, yeah, that's a great point. And like, it is not, 1999 where you have to tour 250 to 300 days out of the year. It's like you watch these early Deftones documentaries or like little videos and stuff, and they're like, yeah, they were on the road for like 2.5 years straight or something like that, just some ungodly number of months. And fortunately, some people might disagree, but I don't think that's the case anymore, just because of 2025 being so technologically advanced. I mean, you have the entire world in the palm of your hand. So, yes, touring is 100% justified and needs to happen. But I think gone are the days for bands in kind of our caliber where like you can see success from touring part-time.
Let us talk about our friends at evilgreed.net. They are one of the best places to buy merch, vinyl, sweaters, shirts. Like I have a hard time talking about them because there's so many cool things that they do. It really genuinely reminds me of when I started to get into punk and hardcore, where these distros or these labels that had just pages and pages in a catalog of you to look at their stuff and be like, oh my gosh, I want to order probably like at least $3,000 worth of merchandise. But of course, I'm 16 years old. I don't have that sort of money. But evilgreed.net is an awesome distro where they work with labels and bands, but all through a specific point of view, what I like to call artistic heavy stuff. And so trust me, if you listen to this podcast, I guarantee you will like at least 90% of the bands that they have on their site. They ship worldwide from Berlin, Germany. And what makes it even cooler is the shipping rates to us here in the United States are very cheap, all things considered. Okay. So do that. Check out evilgreed.net, buy as much stuff as you possibly can, and then you'll be extremely satisfied. They have exclusive colors of vinyl for some of your favorite bands. It's awesome, and I love evilgreed.net. So go support the supportive.
And speaking of that, like the tour, because I know that you're not to like fast forward through the bio stuff, but like you've spoken about obviously starting Narrowhead with Jacob, and clearly like anybody that does 0.4 seconds of research on you or the band can understand that. But the reason I mention that is because you obviously experience, like going out touring a little bit, playing some shows outside of obviously your local area. Did you or do you like, touring? Is that a fun concept for you, or is it like, oh, I have to do this because I like playing live? Like, how does it sit in your head?
It sits in my head much differently than it did at 19, for sure. At 19, it's like, oh, I'm on tour, I have no rules. I get to go see the entire country with my best friends in a van, and I get to play shows, and people are going to give me $50 to play shows. That is the coolest thing I've ever heard of.
Right.
At 32, it's a lot different. Touring is still exciting. Touring is still fun. But I've got kiddos of my own. So like when I'm on tour, I'm only thinking about them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that guy on my shoulder comes in and he's like, should you be doing this right now? What about your
Right.
kids at home?
Right.
You're missing this, you're missing that. They're probably missing you. And the only silver lining that comes with that is that I have an 8-year-old son, and he's like Bleed's biggest fan, truly.
That's amazing.
Yes, he plays drums. He dresses like he could play in the band. Like you would do a double take and be like, yeah, he's in the band too. The way that he dresses, he's got long hair. We just dyed it like a dark brown. He wanted to do it jet black and permanent. So we said, okay, why don't we do temporary dark brown and see how that goes. So honestly, when I'm on tour or playing shows outside of Dallas or doing stuff with Bleed in general, that guy on my shoulder is still there, but Landon, my son, is also there in my head. He's like, no, Dad, you need to do this. This is the coolest thing in the world. You're doing what you love. And he's like, I want you to do more of it, because I love it so much, and I want you to do what you love. You know what I mean? And it's like it's a really special thing, because that kid at 8 years old can be anything that he wants, but he chooses to be really a lot like me, which is incredible. And it makes things a lot easier to digest when I'm gone or doing stuff with the band and stuff like that. And it's almost like more motivation at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really special to feel like you are creating value outside of like the selfish nature that it sometimes is to, be creative. And the fact that it gives someone else life outside of the context of the people who you impact musically. It's like, I can look like in my house, this is impacting my child. And this is a pretty cool feeling.
Yes, it's awesome. And like, since we got the record finished, everything was like done, I'd say probably 4 months ago. And since then, he has learned every song on the record on drums. Because he's got his drums set up in the garage, and he, like, the minute he gets home from school, he bangs on those drums till dinner time, and he's playing Bleed songs and he's playing Narrowhead songs like correctly, and every time Carson, our drummer, is around, he's just infatuated with him, asking him all these questions about how he did this transition, or asking him about his drums or his cymbals, what he thinks about this and that. And like, man, it's the coolest thing, and it's truly special. And I'm very fortunate that this kid has turned out this way.
Yeah, that is special. I mean, your drummer's days are numbered. I'm sorry to tell that to him in this podcast right now, but
yeah, absolutely. That's what he says. He's like, dude, he asks me every couple of weeks, he's like, do you think that when I, turn this age, I could be in Bleed? And I'm like, absolutely, dude. I've got no problem with having a conversation with Carson saying, you're out and Landon's in.
Yeah, it's like, and you obviously, like, as Carson, you're like, I literally can't argue against that. You're like, I'm sorry. Like, I won't be able to say anything to convince you otherwise. So I will respectfully step aside.
Yeah, Carson's keeping the seat warm for him. He knows that.
That's spectacular.
That's funny.
Something I find fascinating about, Bleed and the members that you play with is that, like, you've been creating music with them for years, like in whatever iteration you want to do, whether it's, death metal, whether, like, I just find that so cool when you have this core group of people that you're just like, whatever it is we want to execute, whether it's bad, good, in between, doesn't matter. Like, it's this core that I want to create with. And what do you think, I guess, compels you to keep that nucleus together? Is it just the fact that you have such a long shared history with these people?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think it comes down to the fact that we just get each other, and we're all pretty much always on the exact same wavelength when it comes to creativity and what we want to accomplish and how we want things to come across. I really wasn't into death metal growing up. I was into metalcore, of course, but like a couple of guys in the band, Adam and Noah, were like, I mean, the biggest black metal and death metal fans for a long time. I mean, the extent of their knowledge on that part of the world, you know what I mean, is pretty incredible. And I kind of feed off that in a sense where I'm like, okay, if we're gonna start a death metal band, it's got to sound like this. And they're like, yes, and then do this. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. I think it just comes down to the fact that we all want the music and what we create to evoke a certain feeling, and we all understand that. And I think that's why we create so well together. And we all kind of have our roles when it comes to songwriting. Um, so I think we all just
Just works.
unanimously have yeah, man, it just we just have the mission in mind, and the mission is number one, and this is what we want to accomplish. However we get there, we'll figure it out together.
Hmm. Yeah, I just, I don't think that not everybody is lucky enough to find as many people as you have. Like, it's the fact that you're like a trio of creative individuals, not excluding anybody else from Bleed, but just like the people you've been playing with the longest. And I think like you're lucky when you find one person that kind of like gets you on that level, but it's just really cool when you have a core that can be like, all right, tomorrow we're going to be in, a freaking, groove metal band or whatever. Like, you're like, yeah, okay, let's
Yes.
play towards that. Here's the goal.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because like we'll all kind of send songs into the Bleed chat and be like, all right, when after we get this done, let's start this band. You know what I mean? And like me and Adam were talking about this the other day, that we don't really care how things are perceived when we put them out, because we put them out because we write them the way that we want to, and we almost write it so that we can hear it. You know what I mean? We write a song a certain way so that we can listen to it that way, and that's always been the goal. Especially, I mean, even with Carson and Rubio, I got to write with Carson when I was in Narrowhead. Rubio has always been a close friend, for 10 years, so we all understand how things should be done, and we feed off each other to get them done. It's pretty special, and we're all pretty fortunate to have each other for sure.
Rockabilia.com is the place where you should buy all of your officially licensed band merch. And I don't care if you're into hardcore, punk, mainstream metal, pop, classic rock. They got it all, and it's all officially licensed. Ships from the Midwest here in the United States of America, and it gets to you in like, I don't know, 4 to 5 days, and you can even do overnight shipping. Their customer service is just spot on in case you run into any issues. And they have a promo code. They want you to use this 100 words or less. That's the number 100 words or less. It gets you 10% off of your entire order. This company's been in business for over 30 years. They have over 500,000 items, and I can guarantee you that you will be able to find something for yourself and everybody in your life as you start to be like, planning on birthdays, or, maybe a rad wedding gift or just something for yourself. All of those occasions are great for you to go to rockabilia.com, use the promo code 100 words or less to buy your favorite hardcore shirt, your favorite metal sweatshirt, whatever it is, they got it. Trust me. Go to rockabilia.com and have fun shopping.
Something that's interesting, I think, with Bleed in particular is, like you guys definitely got caught in the algorithm, as I'll say, where it's like, stuff gets recommended, and, with bands that, throwing no shade whatsoever against, bands that obviously like just get caught in that. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yes, like I guess we're, getting streamed hundreds and thousands of times because of a TikTok video or whatever. Like that's just the way that music is discovered now. When did you, I guess, kind of notice, like after you put out the first thing with Bleed, like that it was slightly different than maybe your previous experiences of like, oh yeah, we're just releasing music and playing shows and doing that. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I guess people are taking this seriously, whatever that may mean, or like we're on a playlist, I guess. Like, when did you, I guess, notice that happening?
It's interesting. It definitely wasn't overnight.
Sure.
I think when we put out Somebody's Closer, I think it was like my friends really kind of showed me that like, hey man, this is really, really good. And then it started to get picked up by like, streaming sites and stuff like that. Not Spotify necessarily, but like, Revolver or, Brooklyn Vegan, stuff like that. Like they started to like do a little write up about it. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then we started to get asked for shows. And then we went on tour with Narrowhead in 2022. And all we had out, we had just put Killing Time out as a single. And so we had 5 songs. And we've literally had 5 songs up until last week. But when we went on the tour with Narrowhead in 2022, that's when everything really set in. Because from the first show we played to the last show we played, kids were going crazy. Kids across the country knew the words and lost their minds when we played. And I was like, okay, this is really special because we have 5 songs and people know the words to every single song and they want to hear more. And then it's like the internet then was like, okay, when's the next record? When's the next single? And unfortunately, we've had to listen to that for like the last 3 years, but
right.
Yeah. So I think that tour with Narrowhead was when really things set in. And I think that's when I looked at it as like, okay, this is something that we need to invest in a little bit. Right.
It's like, yeah, like people are taking it seriously, but, and because of that, like we, for whatever that may mean, like need to take it seriously as well. Like there's, we're seeing the attention and not just saying that, like, I mean, you would be creative regardless of the attention. But it's like, oh, okay. Like maybe there's a path forward here.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of like people saying like the key words that they were saying, potential. And it's like, in my mind, I saw the potential, but now someone else who I don't even know says that they see potential in it. And us as the creators have all this potential drummed up in our head, right? Of like, okay, yeah, when we make another song or make a record, it's going to sound like this and that. We're going to do this. But now other people are like, yes, this has potential. And so I think between that and then, people saying, I want to hear more, was like really motivation to take it seriously internally. Mm-hmm. And start operating like a band, even though we operated as a band for 3 years between the Killing Time single and this most recent single and releasing the record. But, we operated internally. I'll say that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure it's like gratifying when, and I'm being, cheeky when I'm saying this, but it's just like, hey, Ryan, like the thing you're doing now, like it's pretty good, dude. It doesn't suck. So you should keep doing that.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
Right. Funny. It's like all that other stuff you were doing, like it was cool, but like this is the real. And you're like, oh, really? I've been doing this for like 10 years and now it's too good.
Exactly. Yes. Yes, exactly. That's cool though.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, and truthfully, it's like, that's what is gratifying about, playing in a band or creating art in general, is like, you never know not only what is going to be interesting or hit or whatever, but it's like, that's part of the, excitement, where it's like, hey, even if, 500 people are listening to this music I'm putting out, like that's 499 more than I thought there was going to be.
Yeah. I'm listening to it. So there's 499 other people that are listening to
Right.
it, like me.
Totally. Like I'm rinsing this all day long, and I got to constantly play in the background.
Exactly. Yep.
The last two things I want to hit on was the fact that kind of along that line of the fact that, you know, you were forced, for lack of a better term, to, you know, take the band seriously. And so once you started to think about the idea of like, you know, not like $20 Spin is this, you know, huge major label conglomerate where it's like, all right, you know, got to get a team around us and all this other stuff. Like as far as the music business side of things, how have you interacted with, you know, even if obviously on the level you guys are at, like, how do you interact with the business side of music? Is that something that you enjoy, or is that just kind of a, you know, thing that you got to deal with because that's what it's like playing in a band?
Yeah. You know, it's the business side. I kind of run all of it. I do all the social media, all of the money, all of the, you know, if we book shows by ourselves, I do all that by myself. Um, it's been interesting. I don't want to say I hate it, because there is a part of me that I do enjoy it, just because I enjoy the process
Oh,
of
sure.
it. But on top of other things in my life, you know, it gets stressful for sure. Um, and honestly, Dave at $20 Spin, he's been a huge help to me, because I kind of lean on him when it comes to the business side for advice, or like, hey, how should I formulate this email? Even with Carson, just because Narrowhead has a big business side, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
uh, with the level that they're at. And so I kind of lean on Carson and Rubio specifically, as well as Dave. And I'm like, hey, how should I write this email? Or what do you think about this, or this routing, or something like that? I definitely won't say that I hate it, because like I said, there is a large part of it that I do enjoy, because I also get an inside look on the band growing, you know, and the band growing from a different point of view than just like streams or views or something like that. I get to see, oh, so and so, you know, emailed us about this, or, you know, Dave's like, hey, I know this guy, he's interested in this. So I get to see all that and have a front row view of the band growing internally. So I think it's cool. And it's like, I kind of bitch about it to the other ones, and I'm like, I'm doing all this, you know, I've you know, written 16 emails today for this and that. But then I'm like, but I'll keep doing it because I enjoy it, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm kind of our pseudo manager, booking agent, whatever, with the help of everyone else. And at the, like, for a long time, I did all of that. Like, I talked to Aiden, our merch guy, I put in the merch orders and stuff like that. But at this point, luckily, a lot of the other guys have really pitched in and like started to take on these roles, so that I can just kind of focus on some of the key things, and so they can focus on other things, so that they aren't, you know, lost or dropped.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the business side is new to me, but until, you know, someone else can take that over for us, I'll just continue to do it, and that's fine. It's like our DIY aspect, I suppose.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, you do it until, you know, you don't have to. And then someone else who knows what's happening can, like, and you trust them. You're like, oh yeah, you want to help me? Are you sure? Okay, cool. Like, let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last thing I want to hit on was, we kind of talked about it, obviously, with you, you know, being a family man, like you said, you have a career outside of it. And the balance of those worlds, like we were talking about before, as well as like the identity, where it's just like, I'm sure people at your work are just like, oh dude, Brian's a rocker, like plays into bands, like, you know, there's a lot of that. I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of those conversations that happen. um how do you feel, like, do you feel like you're better navigating that now than you were a couple of years ago, or do you still feel, I guess, ill-equipped to be like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I'm just figuring this out as it as it goes.
Yeah. I'd say I'm much better at navigating it now. A few years ago, I had a lot of anxieties around it because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was scared for worlds to cross over. Um, and so in flood these thoughts of, why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? I need to be focusing on a career. I need to be focusing on providing for my kids and stuff like that. And it's taken just some growing up and like some realizations that like both can exist at the same time. I can still maintain my career, and then I can still maintain the band. I might want slash need to put some more attention into the band, to see where that goes. But navigating it has gotten easier, logistically. Mentally, it's still pretty tough because, again, tour offers are coming, and, opportunities are coming to the point where, like, okay, I'm going to have to spend some time away, and some time away from my kids. I'd love to spend time away from work. Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
But, when it comes to, the kids being at home, that's something that I don't take lightly at all, because I'm going to spend this time away from them doing something that I love. And so this selfish little monster inside of me is like, you're being selfish, this shouldn't be what you're doing. And it's hard to fight that sometimes. And sometimes he wins, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm at the point where I'm open to the future, kind of whatever it holds.
Sure.
Especially when it comes to the band. And my kids will support me as I move forward with it, especially Landon, like I said, because he's Bleed's biggest freaking fan.
Right.
And it helps me almost double down on it, because I'm like, he loves it. He knows the purpose. It sucks that, I'm going to spend 2.5 weeks away from him in May or this, like that. But navigating it has definitely gotten easier logistically, I'd say, which I'm glad. And my career is one where I can take off a sizable amount of time, like in a row. So moderate touring is definitely available for me, professionally, but still there's this little internal struggle that happens because now I'm starting to anticipate being gone, and I'm having to anticipate calling my kids and being like, hey, I'm here today, we're about to play and something like that. And, they just got home from school, and I'm like, I wonder how the day was, this, like that, So
Yeah.
it's tough mentally for sure. It's even harder when you're on tour, but luckily logistically it's gotten better, and the future is just one day at a time. We'll see what happens,
Yeah. No, it's exciting. And this will be the last thing, because I'm putting you on the spot, because I am, and there's no wrong answer. This is just preference. Obviously we spoke about hum at the very beginning. I'm going to give you a choice between, like, is it Downward is Heavenward, or is it You'd Prefer an Astronaut, which is your record? Or it could be Electra 2000 for all I can know, but.
Dude, I listened to Electra 2000 the other day, and I was like, this record is good.
Yeah, or it could be Inlet too. Like, I mean, we can go anywhere, but those are obviously, I'm just giving you a gun to your head. Choose one of those records.
Yeah, sure. I think at 20 years old, it'd be You'd Prefer an Astronaut. But I think pound for pound, Downward is Heavenward is the better record, I'd have to say.
It's the right answer. I mean, in my opinion as well. I think that's because I think the tracks on You'd Prefer an Astronaut like hit, like, I'd Like Your Hair, like, just, I mean, besides Stars, obviously it's a great song, but as a record, I agree. To me, I compare it to like Jimmy World's like Static Prevails versus Clarity, where it's like Static Prevails has some jams, like they're really good songs, and like they're still rough around the edges, but then you listen to Clarity and you're just like, that's a perfect record front to back. So it's like, that's, there's more listening power, I guess I would say, with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of a journey, I think, than You'd Prefer an Astronaut. You'd Prefer an Astronaut has like the hits, the Pod, Stars, and I'd Like Your Hair Long, stuff like that, like really notable tracks. But Downward is Heavenward is like it's substance for me. You know, it's got a lot more of that than I think You'd Prefer an Astronaut does,
Right.
personally.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We're in alignment there, so that's good. That was the right answer. If you were gonna, I mean, even if you said you'd prefer an astronaut, I'd be like, yeah, actually, you know what? You're right. Yeah, it's a really
Yeah, it's
yeah,
funny. Inlet, though, is the honorable mention because Inlet to me is incredible. It's a totally different record than everything else they've ever done, but to me personally, I think it's the record that Hum was always destined to make.
Dude, nail on the head. Like, I agree wholehearted. Like, it's especially, I mean, some of my favorite things to describe bands that, like, especially bands that come back and, you know, reunion shows, records or whatever. My favorite thing is when a band has no right to be as good as they are, or it's just like, you have no right to release this record, you know, after 15 years
Yeah.
away or whatever. It's like, come on, dude,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous.
And they just dropped it out of nowhere.
Totally. I was like,
So cool. So
yeah.
cool.
It is, yeah. That's what obviously that could easily be, you know, what Bleed does. You know, 20 years from now, you're just going to be like, here we go. Here's a record. You guys didn't expect that.
Yeah. At this rate, for sure. Yeah, that's probably what it'll be.
Huge shout out to Ryan. Thank you very much for, doing something that I could tell was not maybe comfortable. I mean, he was comfortable. We had a good conversation, but, podcasts sometimes freak people out because they're like, dude, I got to sit here for an hour. And what if in the first 5 minutes I want to bail out? Because I have been on the receiving end of that, where I've been asked to appear in a podcast. And within a couple of minutes, I'm like, dude, this is not a easy conversation. We're going to have to pull teeth to get this going. But Ryan, great chat. You did great. I think we accomplished what we needed to. And huge shout out to Stephanie, his publicist, for, publicist of the stars. Just one of the greatest human beings on this planet. And she always brings me good ideas. So love to see that. And please check out their first LP that's coming out on 20 Bucks Spin on May 2nd. So that's what we got for this week. And of course, next week, I got to tease what's happening. We have a great chat with Rocky Votolato. And he's one of my favorite human beings on this planet. I haven't had him on the show for about 8 years. And he played in a band called Waxwing. And his new band is called Suzzallo. And it's a very, very emotional at times chat, because the creation of this LP was from his son, or actually, I'm not sure how he labels his, his child. We'll say that. His child, because they consider themselves a they, them. And anyways, died tragically in a car accident. And it was horrible. And I sort of viewed it from afar via social media. But through that tragedy, he was able to pull himself out via music, and it was a inspiring story. So had to have Rocky on. That's what we got on the show next week. And until then, please be safe, everybody.